The knock on the hotel room door came at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. Femi, still catching his breath and adjusting his clothes, assumed it was room service. Maybe they were bringing the extra towels Lydia had requested. He walked to the door with a satisfied smile on his face, still riding the high of what had just happened on that bed. He turned the handle and pulled the door open. The slap that landed on his face was so hard, so unexpected, that Femi's brain couldn't process it immediately. His head snapped to the side. His ear rang. Stars danced in his vision. And before he could even register what was happening, a second blow came, this time a punch to his stomach that knocked all the air out of his lungs. Femi doubled over, gasping. And that's when he saw the boots, black police boots. His eyes traveled up to see the police uniform. And then the face, a face twisted with rage. A face he had seen before in a photograph Lydia had shown him, though she claimed they were separated. It was the husband. What followed was the worst 3 minutes of Femi's life. The policeman, a man in his late 30s, built like someone who had spent years in the force, solid and strong, proceeded to beat 23-year-old Femi like he was a punching bag in a gym. Punches to the face, to the ribs, to the back. Femi tried to defend himself, tried to explain, tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hotel room was small, and the door was blocked by this mountain of rage in a police uniform. Lydia was screaming. The hotel staff were knocking. Other guests were opening their doors to see what the commotion was about. And Femi, the church boy who had lost his virginity just 2 weeks ago in this very hotel, was getting the beating of his life from a husband he had been told was practically an ex-husband. When it was finally over, when the hotel manager and security had pulled the policeman off, Femi, the young man, lay on the floor, bleeding from his nose and mouth, one eye already swelling shut, his white shirt torn and stained with blood. He could taste copper in his mouth. His ribs screamed with pain every time he breathed. And worse than the physical pain was the shame, the absolute crushing shame. This was not how Femi had imagined his adult life would begin. This was not the story he had planned to tell about his first sexual experience. This was a disaster, a complete and utter disaster. And the worst part, he had no idea how he had ended up here. Femi was 23 years old, a fresh graduate of English language from Lagos State University. Like many Nigerian graduates, he had finished school with no immediate job prospects and no clear path forward. The mandatory NYSC was coming, but the call-up letter hadn't arrived yet. He needed money. He needed to do something productive with his time. He needed to help his parents with bills. That's how he ended up at Bright Stars Primary School in Ikeja, a small private school tucked into a quiet residential area. The pay wasn't great, just 35,000 naira a month, but it was something. He taught English and mathematics to primary 4 and 5 students. The kids loved him because he was young, energetic, and actually made learning fun. Femi was a good-looking young man, though he didn't quite realize it himself. He was tall, about 6 feet, with a lean build, clear skin, and a smile that made him look younger than his 23 years. He dressed simply, usually jeans and polo shirts, occasionally a shirt and trousers when he wanted to look more professional. His hair was always neatly cut. He wore glasses that gave him a scholarly, approachable look. More importantly, Femi was genuinely nice. Not the fake nice that men sometimes use to manipulate women, but genuinely kind, respectful, and considerate. He held doors open for people. He helped colleagues carry heavy loads. He volunteered to stay late when the school needed extra hands. He was the kind of person mothers pointed to and told their daughters, "That's the kind of man you should marry." But Femi had a secret. Well, not really a secret, but something he didn't broadcast. He was a virgin. At 23, in an age where most of his friends had lost their virginity in secondary school or early university, Femi had never had sex. It wasn't for lack of opportunity. Girls had liked him in university. Some had made it clear they were interested. But Femi was a church boy, not just in name, but in practice. He attended Winners Chapel, was part of the youth ministry, and had made a personal commitment to save himself for marriage. His parents were deeply religious, and he had internalized their values about sexual purity and holiness. But that didn't mean Femi didn't think about sex. Oh, he thought about it a lot. He watched movies and saw the romantic scenes. He saw couples on campus kissing and wondered what it felt like. He had fantasies, dreams, urges that he prayed away and fasted over. He struggled with masturbation, feeling guilty every time, confessing it to God and promising to stop. He was a normal young man with normal desires, trying very hard to be holy in a world that made holiness very difficult. And then Lydia walked into his life. Actually, Lydia didn't walk into his life. She had always been there, from Femi's first day at Bright Stars Primary School. But for the first 3 months, Femi barely noticed her beyond the usual professional courtesies. She was Mrs. Lydia Okonkwo, the mathematics teacher for primary 2 and 3. She was married, so in Femi's mind, she was automatically off limits, not even worth thinking about in any romantic or sexual way. Lydia was 22 years old, though she looked even younger. She had gotten married at 18, straight out of secondary school, to her husband. Yes, he insisted on being called chief, even though he was just a police sergeant who was in his late 30s. The age gap alone should have been a red flag to everyone who attended that wedding. But in Nigeria, older men marrying teenage girls was not uncommon, especially when the man had money and the girl's family was struggling financially. Lydia was petite, barely 5 feet 3 inches, with a round face, big eyes, and a figure that made men look twice. She knew she was attractive. She had known since she was 16 and older, men started making passes at her. Her husband had been one of those men, her father's friend, actually, who had shown up at their house one day, seen young Lydia, and decided he wanted her as his wife. The marriage had not been happy. Chief Okonkwo was a traditional man who believed the wife's place was in the kitchen and bedroom, who saw Lydia more as property than partner. He controlled her money, monitored her movements, and made it clear that her job as a teacher was just something to keep her busy until she gave him children. 4 years into the marriage, there were no children. Lydia had been to different hospitals, done tests, drunk various herbal concoctions, gone for deliverance at different churches. Nothing worked. The doctors said both she and her husband were fertile, that there was no medical reason for the childlessness, that they should just keep trying. But Chief Okonkwo wasn't trying anymore. He had concluded that Lydia was barren, that she was cursed, that marrying her had been a mistake. He had started sleeping with other women, one of his colleagues' wives, a girl who sold suya near the police station, even the housemaid they had hired briefly. He wasn't even subtle about it. He would come home smelling of other women's perfumes, with lipstick marks on his collar, sometimes not coming home at all. Lydia knew. Of course she knew. The whole neighborhood knew. But what could she do? Divorce was shameful. Her family would blame her. The church would condemn her. And where would she go? She had no money of her own. Her salary went straight into a joint account that Chief Okonkwo controlled. She was trapped. And then she noticed Femi. Femi and Lydia both lived on the same street as the school Lagos rents, being what they were. Many teachers lived in the same neighborhoods as their schools. They would sometimes walk home together after school, usually in groups with other teachers. Femi noticed that Lydia was quiet, almost sad. While other teachers chatted and laughed, Lydia often seemed lost in thought. Being the kind person he was, Femi made an effort to include her in conversations, to make her smile. He had no ulterior motive. He was just being nice. But Lydia interpreted the attention differently. Here was a young man, handsome, kind, educated, respectful, paying attention to her, not demanding anything, not treating her like property, just being genuinely nice. It stirred something in Lydia that had been dormant for years. It reminded her that she was still young, still desirable, still a person with feelings and desires and dreams. The shift happened around the 4th month of Femi teaching at the school. Another teacher, Miss Jennifer, had developed a crush on Femi. She was obvious about it, bringing him lunch, offering to help him with lesson plans, laughing too loudly at his jokes, finding excuses to touch his arm. Femi, in his innocence, thought she was just being friendly. But every other teacher could see what was happening, including Lydia. And Lydia felt something she hadn't expected to feel: jealousy. Why should Jennifer get Femi's attention? Jennifer was older, not as pretty, not as interesting. Lydia watched as Jennifer flirted shamelessly, and something competitive awakened in her. If Jennifer wanted Femi, then Lydia wanted him more. The pursuit began. First, Lydia made sure she and Femi walked home together more often. On days when Chief Okonkwo was on duty and couldn't pick her up, Lydia would time her departure from school to coincide with Femi's. She would coincidentally leave at the same time, heading in the same direction. Femi, still oblivious, thought nothing of it. They were colleagues. They lived on the same street. Why wouldn't they walk together? Then came Femi's birthday. He hadn't told anyone at school about it, but Lydia had seen the date on his employment form. She bought him a gift, a nice perfume, something that clearly cost more than a casual gift should cost. She presented it to him in the staff room during break, in front of all the other teachers, including Jennifer. Femi was surprised and touched. No one except his family had ever bought him a birthday gift. He thanked Lydia profusely, completely missing the look of triumph on her face as she glanced at Jennifer. Then Lydia helped Femi get a home lesson gig. One of her husband's colleagues wanted a teacher for his children, and Lydia recommended Femi. It was legitimate help, something a good colleague would do. But it also meant that Femi now owed Lydia a favor, felt grateful to her, saw her as someone who had his interests at heart. The conversations during their walks home became longer, more personal. Lydia started sharing details about her life that she shouldn't have been sharing with a young, single colleague. She told Femi about her marriage, carefully framing herself as the victim and her husband as the villain. Femi, whose parents had a good marriage and who had grown up believing men should treat women with respect, felt genuinely sorry for her. That's terrible, Mrs. Lydia. You deserve better than that, he would say. Please, call me Lydia. We're friends now, aren't we? She would say with a small smile. Lydia began constructing a narrative. She told Femi that her husband was abusive, not physically hitting her, but verbally abusive, controlling, demeaning. She told him that Chief Okonkwo denied her sex, that he hadn't touched her in months, that he was sleeping with other women while keeping her starved of intimacy and affection. The sex part was partially true. Chief Okonkwo was indeed sleeping with other women, but he wasn't denying Lydia's sex. He just wasn't interested in her specifically. And Lydia, in her retelling, made it sound like she was a young woman with normal desires being cruelly deprived by a cold, heartless husband. Femi, who had never been married, who had never even been in a serious relationship, who understood sex only through theory and fantasy, felt a deep sympathy for Lydia. What kind of man treats his wife like that? He thought. She's so young, so beautiful, so kind. She deserves to be loved. It didn't occur to Femi that he was being manipulated. It didn't occur to him that Lydia was carefully crafting a narrative designed to make him see her as available, desirable, and justified in seeking affection elsewhere. Then Lydia made her most calculated move. She told Femi about Jennifer's infection. You know Miss Jennifer likes you, right? Lydia said one afternoon as they walked home. Femi laughed nervously. I don't think so. She's just friendly. No, Femi. She really likes you. But Lydia paused, as if reluctant to continue. I probably shouldn't say this, but I care about you, so I feel like I should warn you. Warn me about what? Femi asked. Jennifer has a medical issue, an infection, down there. Lydia gestured vaguely toward her lower body. I've seen her in the bathroom scratching herself. It looks serious. I don't think you should get involved with her, for your own safety. It was a complete lie. Jennifer had no such condition, but Femi, who knew nothing about women's health issues and who trusted Lydia, believed her. From that moment, he looked at Jennifer differently. When she flirted with him, he felt uncomfortable rather than flattered. He started avoiding her, being less friendly, creating distance. Jennifer eventually gave up, confused and hurt by Femi's sudden coldness. Lydia smiled. The emotional affair had been going on for about 2 months before it became physical. Lydia had successfully isolated Femi from other women, positioned herself as his confidant and friend, and created an emotional intimacy that felt deeper than anything Femi had experienced before. She told him more about her marriage. She told him that she and Chief Okonkwo were basically separated emotionally, that they were just going through the motions, that she was planning to leave him. She told him that Chief Okonkwo had given her permission to see other people because he himself was seeing other people. None of this was true, but Femi believed it. Lydia started touching Femi. Casual touches at first, a hand on his arm when they talked, a brush of her fingers when she handed him something, a hug that lasted a little too long when she thanked him for helping her carry books. Femi, who had minimal physical contact with women due to his religious upbringing, found these touches electrifying. Then came the compliments. You're so handsome, Femi. Any woman would be lucky to have you. You're going to make someone a wonderful husband someday. You're so different from other men. You're special. Femi ate it up. What 23-year-old virgin wouldn't? Lydia started dressing more provocatively around Femi. Tighter blouses, shorter skirts, more makeup. She would lean in close when talking to him, giving him glimpses of her cleavage. She would lick her lips when he looked at her. She was seducing him, slowly and deliberately. And Femi, for all his religious upbringing and good intentions, was just a young man with no experience and powerful hormones. He started fantasizing about Lydia, feeling guilty about fantasizing about Lydia, praying about his fantasies about Lydia, fasting to stop thinking about Lydia. But the fantasies only got stronger. One Friday evening, as they walked home, Lydia said something that changed everything. Femi, can I tell you something personal? Of course, Lydia. You can tell me anything. I've been thinking about you a lot lately, she said it quietly, looking down at her feet as they walked. More than I probably should, Lydia said. Femi's heart started racing. What do you mean? He inquired. I mean, I think I have feelings for you. She stopped walking and looked up at him with those big eyes. I know it's complicated. I know I'm married. But my marriage is over, Femi. It's been over for a long time. Chief doesn't love me. He doesn't want me. But you make me feel alive again. You make me feel like I matter. Femi should have said no, should have established boundaries, should have remembered that she was married, that he was a virgin saving himself for marriage, that this was wrong on every level. But Lydia looked so vulnerable, so beautiful, so sad, and he cared about her. He did. She had become important to him over these months of walks and talks and shared confidences. I have feelings for you too, Femi heard himself say. And just like that, the line was crossed. They started seeing each other romantically, though secretly. Lydia would make excuses to her husband about staying late at school for meetings or going shopping with friends, and she would meet Femi at different locations. They would go to quiet restaurants in parts of Lagos where no one knew them. They would sit in parks and talk. They would hold hands, but they hadn't had sex yet. Femi was still holding on to that last boundary, that last piece of his purity commitment. Lydia was patient. She knew he would cave eventually. It was just a matter of time and the right circumstances. The first time they had sex, it was Lydia who made all the arrangements. She rented a room at a small hotel in Egbeda, a place far enough from their neighborhood that they wouldn't run into anyone they knew. She told her husband she was going to visit her sick aunt in Ikorodu and would stay overnight. She told Femi she had booked the room so they could talk privately without anyone interrupting them. Femi was nervous as he entered that hotel room. He had never been in a hotel with a woman before. He had never been alone with a woman in a bedroom before. His heart was pounding. His palms were sweating. Part of him was excited. Part of him was terrified. Part of him was screaming that this was wrong, that he should leave, that he was about to make a terrible mistake. But Lydia was there, wearing a dress that hugged her figure, smiling at him with a mixture of desire and affection that made him feel wanted in a way he had never felt before. She kissed him. It was his first real kiss, not a peck on the cheek, but a deep, passionate kiss that made his entire body respond in ways he had only imagined. One kiss led to another. One touch led to more touches. And before Femi's conflicted conscience could mount a serious objection, they were on the bed, clothes were coming off, and Femi was losing his virginity to a married woman in a rented hotel room. It lasted maybe 3 minutes. Femi had no experience, no technique, no stamina. It was awkward and quick and nothing like the movies. But for Femi, it was earth-shattering. This was what sex felt like. This was what he had been saving himself for, waiting for, dreaming about. And now it had happened. Afterwards, as they lay there catching their breath, Femi felt a mixture of emotions: satisfaction, guilt, confusion, shame, excitement, more guilt. Lydia seemed happy. She called up against him, told him he was wonderful, told him she had never felt this way with anyone before, told him they were meant to be together. Femi wanted to believe her. He wanted this to be the beginning of something beautiful, not the terrible mistake his conscience was telling him it was. What Femi didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that at that very moment, Chief Okonkwo was sitting in his car outside the hotel, listening to a recording of the conversation Lydia and Femi had just had. The policeman had suspected something was wrong weeks ago. His wife had become too happy, too distracted, too secretive with her phone. So he had done what many suspicious spouses do in the digital age. He had installed a tracking and recording app on her phone without her knowledge. Every call she made, every message she sent, every location she visited, he knew about it. He had listened to their flirtatious conversations with growing rage. He had tracked her to different locations where she met with Femi. He had restrained himself, waiting, gathering evidence, planning his response. And now, as he sat outside that hotel listening to the sounds of his wife having sex with another man through the phone he had bugged, Chief Okonkwo made a decision. He would let them finish. He would let them think they had gotten away with it. He would let them get comfortable, careless, and then he would strike. Femi and Lydia met 3 more times over the next 2 weeks, each time at the same hotel, which Lydia said she chose because it was discreet and safe. Each time, the sex got a little better as Femi learned and became more confident. Each time, the guilt in Femi's heart grew a little quieter as he convinced himself that what they were doing wasn't really wrong because Lydia's marriage was basically over anyway. Chief Okonkwo knew about all of it. He listened to their conversations. He tracked their locations. He took screenshots of their messages. He built his case like the police officer he was, collecting evidence, planning his intervention. On the fourth meeting, he decided it was time. It was a Saturday afternoon. Lydia had told her husband she was going to the market and then to see a friend. Femi had told his parents he was going to see a former classmate. They met at the hotel at 2 p.m., checked in, and went to their usual room. Chief Okonkwo gave them an hour. He wanted them to be in the middle of things, vulnerable, exposed, guilty. He wanted maximum impact. At exactly 3:45 p.m., he drove to the hotel, parked his car, walked through the lobby in his full police uniform. He had just finished his shift, took the stairs to the second floor, and found room 204. He stood outside for a moment, listening to the voices inside, the laughter, the sounds of intimacy. His hand clenched into a fist, his jaw tightened, and then, with deliberate calmness, he knocked on the door. Inside the room, Femi and Lydia froze. They had just finished their intimate moments and were lying on the bed, still partially undressed, talking and laughing about something insignificant. Who's that? Femi asked, confused. Did you order room service? No, Lydia said, looking equally confused. Maybe they have the wrong room. The knock came again, more insistent this time. Femi got up, pulled on his trousers quickly, grabbed his shirt, and walked to the door. He didn't even think to ask who it was or look through the peephole. He simply turned the handle and opened the door. The slap came immediately, hard, fast, brutal. Femi's head snapped to the side, his glasses flying off his face, pain exploding across his cheek. Before he could even process what was happening, a punch landed in his stomach, doubling him over. Lydia screamed. The sound was piercing, terrified, the scream of someone who knew exactly what was happening and knew it was very, very bad. Chief Okonkwo stepped into the room, and what followed was 3 minutes of violence that Femi would never forget. The policeman beat him with systematic efficiency, punches to the face, to the body, to anywhere he could reach. Femi tried to defend himself, raising his arms to protect his face, but he was no match for a man twice his size, with years of training in physical combat. You are sleeping with my wife? Chief Okonkwo roared between punches. My wife? In a hotel? You small boy? You think you are smart? Femi tried to speak, to apologize, to explain, but every time he opened his mouth, another punch landed. His lips split, his nose started bleeding, his eye began to swell. Lydia was screaming for her husband to stop pulling at his arm, but he shoved her aside like she weighed nothing. She fell onto the bed, crying hysterically, makeup running down her face. Hotel staff had heard the commotion and were now banging on the door. Chief Okonkwo, we know you are in there. Open this door. This is the manager. But Chief Okonkwo wasn't finished. He grabbed Femi by the collar, lifted him slightly, and said in a voice that was even more terrifying because of how calm it was, I am a policeman. I carry a gun every day. I could kill you right now and call it self-defense. The only reason you are still alive is because I am choosing to let you live. Do you understand? Femi, blood dripping from his nose and mouth, could only nod weakly. If I ever see you near my wife again, Chief Okonkwo continued, I will not be this merciful. Do you hear me? Yes, Femi managed to gasp. Chief Okonkwo threw him to the ground like a sack of trash and finally opened the door to the hotel manager and security. By then, a small crowd had gathered in the corridor, other guests trying to see what the commotion was about, hotel staff trying to maintain order. The manager, seeing a police officer in uniform, was hesitant to challenge him. Chief Okonkwo simply said, this man was sleeping with my wife. I am handling it. Unless you want trouble with the police, I suggest you let me finish my business. The hotel manager, not wanting any trouble, stepped aside. Chief Okonkwo turned to Lydia, who was still on the bed, sobbing. You, he said coldly, get dressed. You are coming home with me. We will deal with you there. Then he looked at Femi one last time, lying on the floor bleeding, and added, you should thank God I am not carrying my gun today. And with that, Chief Okonkwo walked out, dragging his crying wife behind him. Femi lay on that hotel floor for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few minutes. His face hurt, his ribs hurt, his pride hurt even more. Hotel staff helped him up, offered to call an ambulance, but Femi refused. He just wanted to leave. He wanted to disappear. He cleaned himself up as best he could in the bathroom, wincing at his reflection in the mirror. One eye was swollen almost shut. His lip was split and bleeding. There was a cut on his eyebrow. His white shirt was torn and stained with blood. He looked like he had been in a war. He took a taxi home, using most of the money he had on him. When he got to his house, his younger brother saw him first and shouted in alarm, Femi, what happened to you? His parents came running. His mother screamed. His father demanded to know who had done this to him. Femi, sitting in their small living room, his face a swollen mess, his body aching, his spirit completely broken, had to tell them the truth. Not the whole truth, he was too ashamed for that, but enough. He told them he had been seeing a woman, that she turned out to be married, that the husband found out and beat him up. His father, a deacon in their church, was furious. You were fornicating, the older man said, his voice filled with disappointment. After everything we taught you, after all your church activities, you were committing adultery. His mother was crying. How could you do this, Femi? How could you throw away everything for a married woman? Femi had no answers. He just sat there, head bowed, tears mixing with the blood on his face, feeling like the biggest failure in the world. The next few days were a blur of pain and shame. Physically, Femi healed slowly. The swelling in his face went down after about a week, though the bruises lingered for much longer. But emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, he was devastated. He didn't go to church that Sunday or the next Sunday. He couldn't face the people who knew him as a good Christian boy. He couldn't stand in the youth ministry after what he had done. He felt like a hypocrite, a failure, a fraud. Then came the worst news. On Monday morning, he received a call from the school administrator. Femi, you don't need to come to school anymore. Your services are no longer required. What? But why? Femi inquired. You know why? Mrs. Okonkwo's husband came to see the proprietor. He told her everything. The school cannot keep you after what happened. It's bad for our reputation. Femi tried to protest, to explain, but the administrator cut him off. Your salary for this month will be paid. After that, please don't come back to the school premises. Goodbye, Femi. Just like that, his job was gone. His reputation was ruined. Word had spread quickly in their small community. The teachers knew, the parents knew. Even some of the students had heard whispers about Mr. Femi and the married teacher. Femi felt like his life was over. He had lost his virginity in the worst possible way. He had committed adultery. He had been beaten by a policeman. He had lost his job. He had disappointed his parents. He had shamed his family. And for what? For a woman who had lied to him, manipulated him, used him, because that's what Femi was beginning to realize. As the fog of infatuation cleared and reality set in, he started seeing things he had been too blind to see before. Lydia had never been separated from her husband. Her marriage wasn't basically over. She had lied. She had pursued him deliberately, isolating him from other women, crafting a narrative designed to make him feel sorry for her and justified in being with her. He had been played, manipulated by someone more experienced, more cunning, more desperate than he had realized. 2 weeks after the hotel incident, Femi's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Femi. It was Lydia's voice, small and sad. He should have hung up immediately. But despite everything, hearing her voice stirred something in him. Lydia, what do you want? He asked in an angry voice. I'm sorry, Femi. I'm so sorry for what happened. I never thought he would find out. I never meant for you to get hurt. Femi's jaw tightened. You lied to me, Lydia. You told me you were separated. You told me your husband gave you permission to see other people. He said, I know. I know I lied. I was so unhappy, Femi. I needed someone. You made me happy. She defended herself. So you ruined my life because you were unhappy. I lost my job, Lydia. I got beaten up. My parents look at me with disappointment every single day. And you what? You wanted to be happy? Femi couldn't control his anger. There was silence on the other end. Then Lydia said something that made Femi's blood run cold. It doesn't matter anymore. My husband and I are getting divorced. He's filing the papers. So I'm free now, Femi. We can be together for real. No more hiding, no more secrets. Femi couldn't believe what he was hearing. Are you serious right now? What do you mean? She asked, unsure of his reaction. Lydia, I don't want to be with you. You lied to me. You manipulated me. You destroyed my reputation. Why would I want to be with you? Femi asked her point blankly. Because you said you loved me, Lydia said, her voice now taking on a tone of desperation. You said you had feelings for me. We had something special, Femi. Don't throw it away because of one bad incident. One bad incident, Femi was shouting now. Your husband beat me up. I lost my job. My family is ashamed of me. And you call that one bad incident? Femi, please, she begged. No, don't call me again. Don't text me. Don't come near me. I never want to see you again. Do you understand? He hung up before she could respond. His hands were shaking. He couldn't believe she had actually thought they could continue some kind of relationship after everything that had happened. But Lydia didn't give up easily. She called again the next day. And the next. She sent text messages, I miss you, we can start over. My husband was horrible to both of us. We can be happy together now. Femi blocked her number. She called from different numbers. He blocked those too. She created a fake Facebook account and sent him messages. He blocked that. She showed up at his street one day, and Femi had to hide in his house until she left. Finally, desperately, Femi changed his phone number and deleted all his social media accounts. He cut off every possible way Lydia could reach him. The harassment stopped, but the damage was done. Femi never went back to teaching. The shame was too much. When his NYSC call-up letter finally came, 6 months later, he saw it as an escape. He was posted to Katsina State, far away from Lagos, far away from his past, far away from anyone who knew about his mistake. During his service year, Femi barely socialized. He did his work, kept to himself, and spent most of his free time reading his Bible and praying. He was trying to rebuild his relationship with God, trying to find the person he used to be before Lydia came into his life. Slowly, painfully, he healed. Not completely. Some scars don't disappear just because time passes. They only fade enough to be carried. In Katsina, nobody knew him as the young man who slept with a policeman's wife. Nobody whispered when he walked past. Nobody looked at him with disappointment in their eyes. He was just corps member Femi, the quiet young man who taught English at a secondary school and minded his own business. And that anonymity saved him. He forgave Lydia before he ever heard anything else about her. Not because she deserved it, but because he was tired of carrying her in his heart like a weight. He never unblocked her, never searched for her online, never asked about her again. As far as he was concerned, she belonged to a past version of himself he had outgrown. When service year ended, he didn't go back to that school, or that street, or that life. He got a job with a small publishing firm in Ibadan. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. He edited manuscripts, read stories, slowly began to write some of his own. For a long time, he didn't trust easily, not women, not compliments, not emotion. When someone showed interest, he hesitated. He studied tone. He listened for cracks in stories. He watched behavior more than words. Today, Femi is not perfect, but he is free. He doesn't pretend the experience didn't shape him. It did. It took his innocence. It tore open his faith. It humbled his pride. It forced him to grow faster than he wanted to. But it didn't destroy him. And whenever he remembers that knock on the door at the hotel, he no longer feels only pain. He also feels gratitude because he walked away alive. Some men don't. For more real life stories, please subscribe to this channel.